گزارش کر رہے ہیں جناب مصور عباس صاحب، آقا مصور عباس صاحب سے کہ وہ آئیں اور حدیث قصہ کی تلاوت کریں۔ پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد۔ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ عن جابر بن عبد اللہ الانصاری عن فاطمة الزہراء علیہ السلام بنت رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ قال سمعت فاطمة انہا قالت دخل علی ابی رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة، فقلت وعليك السلام، قال إني أجد في بدني زوفا، فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الزوف، فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به، فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألؤ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله، فما صل على محمد وآل محمد۔ فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه، فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي، فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله، فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء، فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي يا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك، فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما صل على محمد وآل محمد۔ فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه، فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي، فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ، فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء، فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختارها الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك، فدخل معهما تحت الكساء، فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله، فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين، فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أم رسول الله، فقلت نعم ها هو ما ولديك تحت الكساء، فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي والصاحب لي، وقد أذنت لك، فدخل علي تحت الكساء، ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك، فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم، أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن صالبهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية وأرضا ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت القصاء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت القصاء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبالها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فأهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبة وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي أبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. محمد وآل محمد. فقال لي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله؟ فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالات نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبنا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالات نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله حمه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا وفازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
یہ تھے جناب مصور عباس صاحب جو حدیث کتاب کی تلاوت کر رہے تھے. اب ہم سوز سلام اور مرثیہ خوانی کا آغاز کریں گے. سب سے پہلے گزارش کر رہے ہیں جناب باقر علی سے کہ وہ آئیں اپنا سلام پیش کریں. جناب باقر علی پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہ.
ایک بار درود بھیج دیجیے. بی بی سکینہ کے سلام کے چند شعر آپ کی خدمت پیش خدمت ہے. شمع زندہ میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی. شمع زندہ میں منگا دے کوئی
شمع زندان میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی جا رہی ہے حسین کی بیٹی جا رہی ہے حسین کی بیٹی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی شمع زندان میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی پاس بابا کے جانے والی ہے اب تماچے نہ کوئی مارے گا قبر میں تو غموں کی ماری کے کوئی گوہر نہیں اتارے گا جا کے تربت میں چین پائے گی جا کے تربت میں چین پائے گی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی شمع زندان میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی ہے جناب امیر کی پوتی انتہا اس پہ ہے غریبی کی عالم نظر ہو گیا تاری سانس رکنے لگی ہے بچی کی رسم اب تو کھول دو اس کی رسم اب تو کھول دو اس کی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی شمع زندان میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی شور یہ بیڑیوں کا کہتا ہے کوئی اٹھتا ہے کوئی گرتا ہے خبر یہ غریب بھائی کو دم بہن کا نکلنے والا ہے ابھی لے گی یہ آخری ہچکی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی
آخری بن پیش کر رہا ہوں
شمع زندان میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی رونے والی کی چلتی سانسوں کو آج اس طرح روکا جاتا ہے بند ہو جائے شور گریا کا سر شبیر لایا جاتا ہے ملاقات باپ بیٹی کی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی شمع زندان میں منگا دے کوئی آخری رات ہے سکینہ کی پروان محمد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد جزاک اللہ. یہ تھے باقر علی جو سلام پیش کر رہے تھے. اب میں گزارش کر رہا ہوں جناب مشرف عباس صاحب اور ساتھیوں سے کہ وہ آئیں اور مرثیہ خوانی کریں. جناب مشرف عباس پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
بار دیگر بآواز بلند صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
سلام ہو چکا ہے. مرضی کے چند بند پیش کر رہا ہوں. سورہ فاتحہ. الحمدللہ. درود بھیج دیں آواز بلند.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
سجاد کو بلوایا دوبارہ جو شقی نے یہ سنتے ہی بیووں کے دھڑکنے لگے سینے. فرمایا بھتیجے سے یہ تب بنت علی نے میں کیا کہوں جو رنج اٹھائے میرے جینے. کیا جانیے اب کیا ستم ایجاد کرے گا بلوا کے ہمیں کون سی بیداد کرے گا. بلوا کے ہمیں کون سی بیداد کرے گا. واری گئی مکار کی باتوں پہ نہ جانا. دیکھو میں کہہ دیتی ہوں کچھ دے تو نہ لینا. گر تیغ رکھے حلق پہ سر کو نہ اٹھانا. بابا کی طرح صبر سے گردن کو کٹانا. اور لوٹ کا اسباب جو کچھ پائیو بیٹا پہلے سرے شاہ شہداء لائیو بیٹا. پہلے سر شاہ شہداء لائیو بیٹا. یہ سن کے کہا بانوں نے اے عابد مظفر غم سے علی اصغر کے موئی جاتی ہے مادر 6 ماہ میرا جب سے سدھارا سوئے کوثر چلتے ہیں کلیجے پہ میرے درد کے خنجر پوشاک میرے گیسوؤں والے کی بلانا چھوٹی سی ابا گود کے پالے کی بلانا چھوٹی سی ابا گود کے پالے کی بلانا یہ سن کے چلے روتے ہوئے عابد مظفر نالین تھے پاؤں میں نہ سر پر نہ تھی دستار تھا چاند سی گردن میں پڑا طوق گہرابا تن کانپتا تھا ذوف سے غش آتا تھا ہر بار ہاتھوں سے سنبھالے ہوئے زنجیر گراں تھے آنکھوں سے یتیمی کے سبب اشک رواں تھے آنکھوں سے یتیمی کے سبب اشک رواں تھے اس حال سے پہنچے جو وہاں عابد مظفر اٹھا پائے تعظیم خجل ہو کے بداختر بٹھلا کے قریب اپنے یہ بولا وہ ستمگر مرضی تھی نہ میری شہ بے کس کا کٹے سر للہ بس اب میری خطا بخش دعا بے لو خون شہ ہر دو سرا بخش دعا بے لو خون شہ ہر سرا بخش دعا بے یہ سن کے نہ عابد کو رہا ضبط کا یارا سر پیٹ لیا رو کے گریبان کو پھاڑا پھر بولے شقی تو نے پدر کو میرے مارا ہوتا نہ اگر قتل تجھے شہ کا گوارا شبیر کا سر تن سے جدا ہوتا نظر مہمان تائے تیغ جفا ہو تنزالے مہمان تہے تیغے جفا ہو تنزالے کس کس کا تو بخشاتا ہے خون مجھ سے ستمگار دو بھائی میرے مارے گئے رن میں جفا کا عباس کے شانوں پہ چلی ظلم کی تلوار اور قاسم نوشاہ کو نیزوں سے لیا ماں میدان میں تو نے لولاک کو مارا تو نے تو لائی پنجے تنے پاک کو مارا تو نے تو لائی پنجے تنے پاک کو مارا للہ نہ اس امر کا کر ذکر ستم کا، ہرگز مجھے کچھ اس میں نہیں دخل بدبتا، اس خون کی مالک ہے تو ہے زینب مجتبی، بولا کہ وہ زندہ سے انہیں لائیے جا کر، عابد نے کہا ان کا سر پاک کھلا ہے، بازو ہے بندھے سر پہ نہ مقنا نہ ردا ہے، بازو ہے بندھے سر پہ نہ مقنا نہ ردا ہے، پھر اس نے کہا چادریں جو ہوں تمہیں درکار لے لو میری سرکار سے، اے شیخ کے عزادار، ہر چند بہت سا کیا سجاد نے انکار، جب اس نے نہ مانا تو وہ چپ ہو گئے لاچار، زندہ کی طرف روتے ہوئے جاتے تھے آوے، لے لے کے نام بابا کا چلاتے تھے آبے، لے لے کے نام بابا کا چلاتے تھے آبے، سجاد کو بلوایا۔
Mu'mineen, Assalamu alaikum. Your sponsors for tonight's majlis are the families of the late Agha Mohsin Abbas, along with the RizvI family. I wanted to recognize and thank these families for their participation, and I ask that you all join me this evening in praying for these families and especially their marhumeen. Please do join us again tomorrow evening when we will be commemorating the shahadat of our 8th Imam Ali Raza alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That program will begin at 6:15 p.m. inshallah, and the alam and tabut for the 8th Imam will be taken out after the majlis. Your hosts for that program are the families of Raza and Fayaha RizvI, along with the family of Banda-e Khuda, who humbly request your presence along with your families and friends. Just a couple of announcements before I invite Moulana to the mimbar. This evening, after this majlis and after namaz, will be the annual Youth Shabedari that is hosted by Anjuman-e Qarar. For any of our young reciters who are looking to read, I believe you can still contact Brother Yasser RizvI if you'd like to be added to the list, but inshallah that'll be taking place this evening at starting at approximately 8:30 p.m. And then I also wanted to alert you all about our program for next week, with Arba'een Day falling on Thursday. Our next series, inshallah, will begin on Tuesday evening. Inshallah, please do mark your calendars, and we'll continue until next Sunday. I'll provide more details regarding those programs tomorrow evening, inshallah, and then you can also, you'll also get updates via email and WhatsApp. Then just another reminder to please continue to donate toward our new building project across the street. You are watching that project come up before your eyes. Your support is essential to making sure that project is completed on time. Any donations, check, cash, or Venmo are appreciated. Also, we encourage you to join the monthly donor program. For more information about that, you can see Brother Shaukat Naqvi or Musharraf Abbas. And then lastly, our ShopRite gift card program is continuing. Please do support Astana while doing your regular grocery shopping. It's at no additional cost to you. For information regarding that program or to purchase a ShopRite gift card, you can see Brother Shaukat Naqvi in the men or Sister Sajida Naqvi in the ladies. And now to continue with our program, I'd like to invite Moulana Syed Bilal RizvI Sahab to address the gathering. Bar Muhammad wa Ale Muhammad salawat.
سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين، الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين، والذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والصولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمعاطر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الردبية والجود التقوية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا. أما بعد، فقد قال الإمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين عليه السلام: إن دين الله عز وجل لا يصاب بالعقول الناقصة والآراء الباطلة والمقاييس الفاسدة، ولا يصاب إلا بالتسليم، فمن سلم لنا سلم، ومن اقتدى بنا هدي، ومن كان يعمل بالقياس والرعي هلك، ومن وجد في نفسه شيئا مما نقوله أو نقضي به حرج كفر بالذي أنزل السبع المثاني والقرآن العظيم وهو لا يعلم. صدق المولانا الإمام علي بن الحسين. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Fatima-tul-Zahra in particular, a second salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, a louder salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Amongst the most famous narrations of Imam Zainul Abidin salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi is the narration where the Imam says, Inna deen Allah azza wa jal la yusabu bil uqulin naqisa, that the religion of Allah cannot be understood by those intellects which are naqis and deficient. Wal ara il batila, and those false opinions, they cannot understand the religion of Allah. Wal maqayis al fasida, and those barometers which are corrupt and inaccurate, they cannot understand the religion of Allah. Then the Imam, he continues and he says, وَلَا يُصَابُ إِلَّا بِالتَّسْلِيمِ, that if you want to understand this religion, then the way to understand this religion is through submitting towards it. And in this manner, you find that this narration brings us the important discussion of what role does the aql and the intellect play when it comes to the deen of Islam. That does the intellect have a position, or do you find that intellect is something which the religion of Islam does not acknowledge as having a position? You know, even within this narration, you find that both of these ideas are found within the narration. For example, on one side of the discussion, the Imam says, La yusabu illa bit taslim. That if you want to understand this religion fully, and if you want to appreciate this religion fully, then the method to do so is taslim and submission. But at the same time, you find, on the other hand, the Imam, he mentions that the concept of qiyas, the concept of analogy, is something which comes up, which is referring to a particular type of the use of the intellect. And that's why the subject of analysis tonight is we'll examine this topic of what role does the aql and the intellect play when it comes to the religion of Allah. You know, when it comes to our hadith literature within the school of Ahlul Bayt, one of the unique things which we find within our hadith literature is that oftentimes our books of narrations, they'll begin with narrations about the intellect. For example, Al-Kafi begins with narrations about the intellect. Biharul Anwar begins with narrations about the intellect. And over there you find that there's a number of different narrations, and each of them, they highlight different things. For example, certain narrations will say that when Allah created, the first thing that He created was the aql. For example, it'll say, أَوَّلُ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَقْلِ, that the first thing Allah creates is the aql. Other narrations, for example, the narration of the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Within that narration, the Imam, he highlights that one of the doors to paradise is aql. He says, مَنْ كَانَ آقِلًا كَانَ لَهُ دِينٌ, that whoever uses his intellect, that person has religion. وَمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ دِينٌ دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ, and whoever has religion, that individual, he enters paradise. So you find over here a second narration. A third narration from the Imam, it states that لَمَّا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَقْلِ إِسْتَنْتَقَهُ, that when Allah created the intellect, He gave it the faculty of speech. فَلَمَّا قَالَ لَهُ أَقْبِلْ فَأَقْبَلْ ثُمَّ قَالَ لَهُ أَدْبِرْ فَأَدْبَرْ, that Allah told the aql come forward, the aql came forward. Then after that Allah says the aql go backwards, the aql, it goes backwards. Then after that Allah, He looks towards the aql and He says, وَإِزَّتِي وَجَلَالِي مَا خَلَقْتُ خَلْقًا وَأَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْكَ, that I have not created a creation who was more beloved to you, me than you. وَمَا أَكْمَلْتُكَ إِلَّا فِي مَنْ أُحِبْ, and I only perfect you in the ones that I love. And then after that Allah, He says, Bika u'aqib, it is through you that I give ajr, and it is through you that I give punishment. You know, over here, all of these different narrations, they go to show that aql has a role within the life of a human being. But the question tonight is that what is that role? And we'll examine it in the following stages. Number one, what role does aql and intellect play when it comes to aqaid? Number two, are there aqli and rational arguments within the Quran? Number three, did the Anbiya of Allah use rational arguments? Number four, did Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam use rational arguments? Number five, did Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura use rational arguments? And number six, was the greatest quality of the ashab of Imam al-Hussein aql, or was it taslim on the day of Ashura? And in these six manners, we'll examine this topic about the role of intellect. You know, when we look at Islamic history, you find that what role the intellect plays when it comes to the religion is something which has been a contested topic. You know, even for example, when we look at early Islamic history, you find that the majority of the non-Shia world is Ash'ari in their theology. And those who are Ash'ari in their theology, they say that intellect has a limited position. In other words, what we understand is simply through the Quran and the Hadith. And we are not able to understand anything which is outside of that. You know what this means? is they'll say that if you see dhulm or oppression, for example, if you see a man who is being harmed, the only reason they will say we know it's wrong is because the Quran and the Hadith, they say do not harm anyone. But within the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we recognize that no, there are certain things that the intellect is able to recognize. For example, our aql, it recognizes that Allah will never throw a pious person in the fire of hell. And the reason our aql recognizes this is because we see Allah as having kamal and perfection. And when Allah has kamal and perfection, He will never do anything which is an aib and a deficiency. Others in the Muslim world, they'll say that Allah can throw a pious person in hell, and Allah can throw somebody like Yazid ibn Muawiyah in paradise if He wants. You say to them, why do you say this? They'll say that if you believe anything otherwise, then you are limiting Allah. We say, no, we are not limiting Allah, but rather we are saying that Allah is complete kamal and perfection. Allah will never take a person like Yazid into paradise, not because his rahmah is limited, but because Yazid himself does not have the capacity to receive the rahmah of Allah. You know, there's a big difference between the two. It's like that question that can Allah create a rock which He cannot lift? We say Allah's qudra has no limitation. But objects themselves have limitations in their properties. That's why you find the question itself is naqis. So you find in this manner, that group, it said that aql had no role when it comes to the religion. But at the same time, when we look at Islamic history, we see the other extreme as well. The other extreme is that whatever there is in the religion, they try to justify it by means of the aql and intellect. If there is a hadith of Rasulullah, they'll say that what does the intellect say? If there is a mu'jiza and a miracle, they'll say what does the intellect say? You know, even when you look in the past 2 centuries, many individuals who were commentators of the Quran, they tried to justify everything in the Quran in the light of modern intellect. For example, Dr. Taha Hussain, when Surah Al-Fil was over there, he said, Tarmihim bihijaratin min sijil. Surah Al-Fil, it says that those birds, they pelted that army of Abraha with stones. Over there, they said, this is smallpox. You say to them, what do you mean it's smallpox? They say that we need to be rational when it comes to approaching the Quran. We reply by saying, no, when you look at the Quran, there are mu'jizat, there are karamat, there are things which are outside of the rationality as well. But at the same time, now the question comes up, is that if we recognize that there are elements of mu'jizat and miracles, then what does the Quran say about the role of the intellect? You know, the first point about aql is that the first dalil and evidence within our lives is the aql and the intellect. What does this mean? That the first dalil and evidence is the intellect. You know, we cannot say that we believe that Allah exists because the Rasulullah said so. The reason we don't believe that is because first through our aql we establish Allah, and then we come to Rasulullah. Yes, we can use Rasulullah in a rational argument. You know, how do we use Rasulullah in a rational argument? The way we use Rasulullah in a rational argument is that when you look at the seerah of Rasulullah, never did this prophet lie. And when he stands in front of the people of Mecca, he uses the same rational argument, and he says that if I told you that there is an army behind this mountain, will you believe me? They say, O Prophet, we will believe you. They say, O Muhammad, we will believe you. We have known you nothing except for being sadiq and ameen, being truthworthy and honorable. At that point, Rasulullah says, then I am making the claim that I am the messenger of Allah. You find over here, yes, Rasulullah is showing that even I can be used in a rational argument. You know, when you go to the Quran, you find there are a number of places in the Quran where Allah, He says, "O mankind, use your aql and use your intellect." For example, how many ayat of the Quran are there that say, "Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran"? Do they not ponder over the Quran? "Afala yatafakkaruna fil Quran"? Do they not do tafakkur and fikr over the Quran? You know, on top of that, there are many arguments that the Quran shows that if you use your intellect, you will recognize that this book is nothing other than the book of Allah. For example, one verse of the Quran, it says, "Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran," that do they not ponder over the Quran? وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ إِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If this book was from anyone other than Allah, you would find contradictions in this book. You know, the Quran was not just written in one day. The Quran was revealed over a period of 23 years. You know, if I began a lecture, every single day, 2 minutes, I'm giving a lecture over 20 years. In 20 years, my thought will change. In 20 years, there may be the chance of a contradiction. But when you look at this book of Allah, in 23 years, you find this book is being revealed and there's no contradiction within this book. In that manner, you find this itself is a miracle. You know, circumstances in this world change very quickly. But the Quran, it's showing that if you reflect with your aql, the Quran is given certain predictions whose circumstances never change. You know, the Quran says, "Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab." May Abu Lahab and the two arms of Abu Lahab perish. You know, I ask you, was Abu Lahab alive when this surah was revealed, or was he dead? Abu Lahab was alive at that time. All Abu Lahab had to do was say, "La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah," and this Quran is finished. But you find the Quran, it showed a miracle with this prediction. And then it said, reflect over this miracle, that as long as this man was alive, he was perished. As long as this man was alive, he remained a kafir. So you find in this manner, the Quran is something which incites the intellect, and it says when you use your intellect about this book, then you'll recognize that this book is the book of Allah. I'll give you another example. Another ayat of the Quran, it says, فَلَوْلَا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ. When the moment it comes, when the souls of mankind, it reaches their throats. وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ. And you're watching that person who is dying. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. The reality is that when you watch a person die and their soul, it reaches their throat, we are closer to them than they are to themselves. Then after that, the Quran, it gives a challenge. And this challenge is a rational challenge. It is saying that if you are able to do this one thing, then the Quran is not true. It says the challenge is وَلَوْلَا إِن كُنْتُمْ غَيْرَ مَدِينِينَ تَرْجِعُونَهَا إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. That all you have to do is return the soul back to the body if you are not restricted, and in that manner you would have disproven the Quran. You know, medical science has advanced phenomenally. In the past century, people would die of polio. People would die of diseases that we have a simple vaccine or a simple cure for today. But is there any doctor in the world today who can claim that he can bring the dead back to life? When somebody has been declared dead, even after all of this advancement, nobody is saying we can bring the dead back to life. The Quran is saying that reflect over this reality. that if you are not limited, if you are unlimited in your abilities, the moment the soul leaves the body, you should be able to bring the soul back. You find over here, rationale is being used by the book of Allah. You know, another ayat that says, وَلَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4. وَلَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهُ لَفَسَدَتَا. That if in the heavens and the earth there was any God besides Allah, there would be fasad and corruption. You know, in other words, when you look at the system of the world and you see harmony in the system of Allah, this harmony itself is proof that there is one creator. If there were multiple creators, there would be ta'adad, there would be conflict, there would be corruption. The Quran is saying, reflect on this reality and you'll go towards the wujud of Allah. So you find number one, the first thing which we have established is that even though there are many things in the Quran that can only be understood by the hadith and submission, there is still a position and a place for rationality when it comes to the book of Allah. Now the second thing, and the second question which I proposed, is that when it comes to the Anbiya of Allah, did the Anbiya of Allah use rational arguments or did they only use mu'jizat? You know, when it comes to the prophets of Allah, one way in which they would establish their claim is by demonstrating mu'jizat. That's why every prophet came with a mu'jizat. Yusuf would interpret the dreams. Isa would do what? He would cure the leper. He would heal the blind. You find Musa's asa would turn into a snake. Rasulullah would have the Quran. All of these different things were a mu'jiza. But at the same time, when you look at the Quran, the Anbiya of Allah would also use rational arguments as well. And there's no greater example in the Quran than the Prophet Ibrahim. There are a number of places in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam where Nabi Ibrahim salamullahi alayhi, when he spoke to his people, he would speak to his people by giving them rational arguments. For example, when you look in the Quran says, Alam tara ila alladhi haja Ibrahim fi rabbihi an atahu Allahul mulka. The Quran says, have you not seen that man who would argue with Ibrahim and he would say, oh Ibrahim, Allah has given me a kingdom. It is speaking about Nimrud over here. When he says this, Ibrahim, as per the ayat of the Quran, it says, إِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّيَ الَّذِي يُحْيِي وَيُمِيتُ. Ibrahim says, oh man, you claim that you are Allah just because you have a kingdom. Allah is the one who brings the dead back to life. He gives life and He gives death. At that point, that man, as per the Quran, he says, قَالَ أَنَا أُحْيِي وَأُمِيتُ. He says, oh Ibrahim, I give life and I give death as well. In front of him were two prisoners. He says, one of you, you will live. The other of you, you are ordered to be executed. He says, oh Ibrahim, I've given life and I've given death. So over there, Ibrahim, he continues the argument with more rationale. He says, قال إبراهيم إن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب. He says, okay, you say that you give life and death. Allah, He brings the sun out from the east. Now you bring it out from the west. Over there, Ibrahim, the way he makes this person submit is through the aql and the intellect. This is one example. A second example in the life of Nabi Ibrahim is that Ibrahim, he sees that all of the people of the town, they leave. And when they leave, what Ibrahim does is that he goes to the idol center. And when he goes to the temple, he destroys all of the idols except for the largest idol. You know, when the people of the town, they return, they see all of the idols are broken, and they go to Ibrahim, and the Quran says they look at Ibrahim and they say, أَفَعَلْتَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا يَا Ibrahim? that, "Oh Ibrahim, are you the one who did this towards our gods, towards our lords, towards our idols?" At that point, Ibrahim, he says what? He says, "Bal fa'alahu kabiruhum hada fas'aluhum in kanu yantiqun." Ibrahim says, "No, I didn't do it, but rather the largest idol destroyed all of the other idols." And at that point, Ibrahim says, "Go and ask those idols who did it if they are able to speak." You know what does the Quran say? The Quran says at that moment, all of them realize these idols aren't able to speak. And it says, فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. At that moment, it is as if those people, they return back towards their souls. You know, this idea of returning is something which is found in the Quran time and time again. You know, Allah is saying, "O mankind, in this life within this world, you're not going to a new destination. All you have to do is return towards your fitrah. Return to that pure condition." And the Quran shows there's many ways to return. One of those ways is by using aql. One of those ways is by submitting to Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt. Even many of the different hardships in our lives, they are so that we return back towards Allah. You know, the Quran, it says, "Dahar al-fasadu fil barri wal bahr bima kasabat aydin nas." The reason that there is corruption on this earth is because of the hands of mankind. But then Allah, He explains one of the reasons why this happens is لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. And we see them taste the result of what they would do in order that they can return back towards Allah. So you find this idea of return is something in the Quran time and time again. And one of the ways of returning is through the intellect. So you find Ibrahim, he gives this example. A third example where Ibrahim, he shows the power of the intellect, is that the Quran says that when Ibrahim was with those people who were disbelievers, فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. The Quran says that when the time of night it comes, Ibrahim is with the disbelieving people. He sees a star. قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. Ibrahim says, "This is my Lord." فَلَمَّا أَفَلَهُ قَالَ لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. Then that star, it goes away. Ibrahim, he says, "I do not like that which descends and goes away." In other words, he says, Allah should always be present. Anything which is there and disappears, anything which comes and goes, anything which has strength and weakness, that cannot be Allah. Ibrahim uses this argument through the aql. Then after that, the Quran in the next ayat, it says, فَلَمَّا رَأَى الْقَمَرَ بَازِغًا. After the star, Ibrahim, he sees the moon. And he looks at the people and he says, "Hada Rabbi," no, this is my Lord. At that point, then the moon, it goes away. Ibrahim, he says, لَإِن لَمْ يَهْدِيَنِي رَبِّي لَأَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الضَّالِينَ. He says that if my Lord does not guide me, then I will be dhaleen. I will be misled. I would be misguided by Allah. In other words, he is saying that Allah should always be present so you can receive the hidayat and the guidance of Allah. And then after that it says, the sun, it comes out. Ibrahim says, "Hada Rabbi, Hada Akbar." At that point, all of the people say, "Yes, this sun is larger. This sun must be God." When the sun, it sets, Ibrahim, he looks to the people and he says, "Ana bari'um mimma tushrikun." That I am free from that which you ascribe towards Allah. In other words, through the aql, he established that your God is something else, my Allah is something else. So you find in this manner, number one, we have shown that the Quran has rational arguments. Number two, we have shown from the Quran that the Anbiya of Allah also use rational arguments. The third case study is that did Ahlul Bayt use rational arguments Or did Ahlul Bayt only show mu'jizat? You know, without a doubt, there are many mu'jizat of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. For example, the sun coming back for Amir al-Mu'mineen. For example, many of the mu'jizat like Imam Ali al-Hadi being thrown in a cage of lions and those lions doing sajda before the Imam. All of those examples are there in the hadith. And because they're there in the hadith with evidence, we cannot deny them. But at the same time, Ahlul Bayt would also use rational arguments as well. You know, one of the things that Muawiyah he did is that Muawiyah on the day of Siffin, he saw that Ammar dies on the side of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you know, at that time, there was a very famous hadith of Rasulullah, وَيْهَا أَمَّارٍ تَقْتُلُهُ فِيئَةٌ بَاغِيَةٌ, that those who kill Ammar ibn Yasir will be rebels and they will be baghi. Now Muawiyah, he sees Ammar dies on the side of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So what does Muawiyah begin to say? Muawiyah begins to say that Ali is the killer of Ammar because Ammar came to fight with Ali. That if it wasn't for Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ammar wouldn't have come out on the day of Siffin. You know, over there, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he doesn't reply through hadith. He doesn't reply that Rasulullah said this, but rather he gives a rational argument. He says that if I am the killer of Ammar in that manner, then Rasulullah was the killer of Hamza. They say, oh Ali, what do you mean Rasulullah was the killer of Hamza? He says that you say that Ammar was killed by me because Ammar was fighting on my side. In the same way, Hamza was fighting on the side of Rasulullah when Hamza was killed. So you find in this manner, the Imam, he demonstrates a rational argument in that capacity. You know, furthermore, there are other instances in the lives of Ahlul Bayt as well. In the time of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. In the time of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, there was a famous atheist by the name of Ibn Abil Awja. Ibn Abil Awja, he was watching the Kaaba, and it was the time of Hajj. And all of the people, they were doing tawaf around the Kaaba. It's stated as Ibn Abul Awja is watching the people do tawaf. Another individual by the name of Abdullah ibn Muqaffa, he comes and he speaks to Ibn Abil Awja. And Ibn Abil Awja says to Abdullah ibn al-Muqaffa, all of these people are animals. He says, what do you mean all of these people are animals? He says they follow their religion blindly. They don't have any understanding. And then he points to Imam as-Sadiq. He says there is one exception, and it is that man. Abdullah ibn al-Muqaffa says, what is special about that man? He says, go and speak to him and you'll realize he is different from the rest of the people. Abdullah ibn Muqaffa was an atheist. He goes to Imam as-Sadiq and he says, oh man, what do you say about all of this? In other words, what do you think about religion? You see all of these people around you, some are praying, some are doing tawaf. What are your thoughts about them? You know what Imam as-Sadiq says to him? Imam as-Sadiq gives a rational argument, which is a powerful rational argument. He says, if you are right, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jazakumullah. Imam as-Sadiq says to them, if you, the atheist, is right, then when we die, all of us are on the same level, using my own wordings. In other words, if the atheist is right, and there is no hereafter, then that person who dies, whether he is a believer or unbeliever, there is no harm which is being done, because there is nothing afterwards as per their school of thought. But Imam as-Sadiq says, if we are right, and we are right, then when you die, there is something which will be waiting you, which is painful. So Imam Sadiq is showing in a rational argument that when it comes to us, when it comes to the religion, over here, if we are right and we are right, then you will be in loss because of the day of judgment. But if the case is the opposite, then you find all of us are at the same level. So in this manner, you find this is another example of the Imams using a rational argument. You know, so far in this discussion, we've examined aqaid, we've examined theology, and we've shown that yes, rationale has a place in theology. Without a doubt, we won't be able to understand everything. You know, when it comes to understanding every detail, we go to the hadith of Ahlul Bayt. Imam Zainul Abidin said, La yusabu deenullah bil uqulin naqisa, that the religion of Allah will not be understood by these deficient intellects. There are many details that you find the aql it cannot reach. For example, if I ask you, tell me what will happen in the hereafter using aql only, will you be able to do it? You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to say that there will be a day of judgment and there will be a sirat, there will be a mizan, there will be accounting. All of these things will happen. No, we rely upon the hadith over there. So you find when it comes to many details, you find we submit to Ahlul Bayt alayhum as-salam. You know, another area where rationale is limited is when it comes to fiqh and law, rationale is limited. You know, oftentimes, when we do question answer sessions, people will ask us that why is a dog najis? Or why is this the case? The true answer is because the Quran and the Hadith have told us this. You know, yes, we understand that taharat in general is about cleanliness. But our ultimate source over there is the Quran and the Hadith. And because Ahlul Bayt have told us that, we submit towards them. Otherwise, rationale is limited when it comes to this area. You know, for example, when we do wudu and we wipe our foot, do we wipe the top of our foot or the bottom of our foot? We wipe the top of our foot. If it was just about rationale, rationally we could say the bottom of the foot is dirtier than the top of the foot. Because the bottom of the foot is touching the ground time and time again. But no, the reason we wipe the top is because the Quran is very clear that you wipe the top of the foot. So you find in this manner that rationale and intellect, even though it can be a source to understand various things, when it comes to the realm of law, it is something which is extremely limited. Over there, we are submitting to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And that's why when you look at the closest companions of Ahlul Bayt, that quality which defined them was not always the aql and the intellect, but rather it was taslim and submission. You know, in the time of Imam Sadiq, a man, he comes and he says, "Oh Ja'far as-Sadiq, why do you not stand up for your right?" Imam Sadiq said that if I had people who would support me, I would stand up for my right. At that point, the man says, "Are we not your supporters? You have so many supporters in Khurasan, in different places." As the man is saying this, it's stated that Harun al-Makki, he comes. And Imam Sadiq says to Harun al-Makki, "You see that tandoor? You see that oven? Go and sit in that oven." Harun al-Makki doesn't ask any question. All Harun al-Makki knows is that this is the hukum of Ja'far as-Sadiq. And because Ja'far as-Sadiq told me this, I'll go and I'll sit within that tandoor and that oven. That man who is with Imam Sadiq, he says that, "Oh Ja'far as-Sadiq, why did you do this? This is your follower." Imam Sadiq says, "Go and open the tandoor." When he opens the tandoor, he sees Harun al-Makki is sitting there. Imam Sadiq, he turns to that man and he says, "Oh man, if I had followers like this, then I would stand up for my right." You see, this is taslim and submission. You know, on the day of Safin, it's stated that Malik al-Ashtar had come so close that he is outside of the tent of Muawiyah. And as Malik is going towards the tent of Muawiyah, the call, it comes from Amir al-Mu'mineen that, O Malik, return back towards the tent. You know, over there, Malik has a jung and a battle within him. What is that battle? The battle is the intellect is justifying that Muawiyah is an enemy of Ahlul Bayt. Muawiyah is the greatest enemy of Ahlul Bayt in that time. You know, oftentimes, we know certain things are right and wrong, but we use our mind to justify them as if they're positive. Over there, Malik could have done that very easily. But Malik recognizes that yes, the intellect has a role. The intellect has a position. But a point it comes when this intellect, we submit it at the door of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And he recognized at that point that the hukum of Ali ibn Abi Talib, it comes above this akal as well. So you find in this manner, this quality is seen within the companions of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Even when you look on the day of Ashura, those companions of Imam al-Hussein, that quality which they showed time and time again was their taslim and their submission to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. You know, when Imam al-Hussein, he speaks to them on the night of Laylatul Ashura, on Shab Ashur, he says that Antum fi hillin min bayati. All of you are free to go. You fulfilled your responsibilities. And in the middle of the night, you are able to go. I will even extinguish this candle if you're embarrassed. When Imam al-Hussein, he reignites the candle, all of the ashab of Imam al-Hussein are standing there. And as all of those ashab are standing there, it's stated that Zuhair, he says, O Master, even if I am killed and my body is burnt and those ashes are thrown and I'm brought back to life, and this happens 1,000 times each time, O Hussein, I'll do the same thing. These are those ashab of Imam al-Hussein. You know, these are those ashab because of their submission. We don't just say you are the ashab of Imam al-Hussein. In their ziyarah, we say, Assalamu alaikum ya ansar din Allah. That because you submitted to the Imam, it's as if you have submitted to the deen of Allah. It's as if you have become the ansar and the supporters of the deen and the religion of Allah. And in this manner, you find these ashab one by one. They would give their lives so nothing would happen to the women of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. You know, each of these companions, they gave a great respect to the women of Ali Muhammad. To the extent on Shab Ashur, it's stated that Sayyida Zainab says to Imam al-Hussein that, oh my brother, have you tested these companions? And it's stated that Habib ibn Madahir, he heard this conversation. He returns to the tent of the companions of Imam al-Hussein. And he says, O Ashab al-Hussein, the daughter of Ali is asking about your loyalty. It's stated on that night of Shab Ashur, all of them gather outside of the tent of Sayyida Zainab. And with their swords in their hands, they say, O Binta Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you tell us to cut our necks, we'll cut our necks right now. These are those ashab of Imam al-Hussein, that as long as they were there, nothing happened to the women of Ali Muhammad. But after the martyrdom of these companions, and after the martyrdom of the Ahlul Bayt, you find despite their efforts, dhulm upon dhulm came upon the women of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And amongst the greatest of that oppression is when Imam Zainul Abidin was asked by Minhal, O Imam, what was the greatest difficulty? The Imam says, O Minhal, Asham, Asham, Asham. That Damascus was that difficulty. You know what was that difficulty in Sham? Imam al-Baqir, he narrates that when we entered to Damascus, the first thing which was done is that the head of Imam al-Hussein was hung on the door of Sham. And when the head of Imam al-Hussein was hung, Kulthum would look at the head of the Imam and she would say, Ya Jadda, Ya Rasulullah, Hada Ra'su Habibik al-Hussein Maslubun. That, oh my grandfather, look at the head of Hussein over here. Then after that, Imam al-Baqir, he says that when we entered the marketplace of Sham, people would yell that Baghi and rebels have come. People would throw rocks at us, Ahlul Bayt. And he says that when we would go past the houses, people would pour boiling water on top of us. At one point it stated that boiling water was poured on Imam Zainul Abidin, and the turban of Imam Zainul Abidin, it catches on fire. You know, when Imam Zainul Abidin was in that marketplace in Sham, there was a companion of Rasulullah by the name of Sal ibn Sa'd al-Sa'idi. Sal, he goes to the Imam and he says, I was a companion of Rasulullah. Imam Zainul Abidin says, O Sal, then do one thing for us. Sal says, O Sajjad, what should I do? Imam Zainul Abidin says, bring me a piece of cloth. Sal says, I didn't understand, why does he want a piece of cloth? He says, I went, I brought that cloth. The moment that cloth, it comes to Imam Zainul Abidin, you know what the Imam, he does? He takes that cloth and he places it within that chain upon his neck. And he looks towards Sal and he says, Oh Sal, from Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham, this metal has been burning my neck. The reason I wanted this cloth is so that a moment of relief can come towards me. You know, after that, Ahlul Bayt, they enter that court of Sham, that court where many they would gather. They place the head of Imam al-Hussein in front of Yazid. You know what Yazid he does? Yazid, he takes a stick. He looks at the head of the Imam. He begins to hit the teeth of Aba Abdullah with that stick. You know, when Ahlul Bayt were in that court in Sham, it stated that there was a wife of Yazid by the name of Hind. And Hind, she looks towards the women of Ahlul Bayt. And she says, Min ayyi biladin antum, which city are you from? The women of Ahlul Bayt, they say, Nahnu min bilad al-Madina. They say, we are from Medina. The moment she hears Medina, she sits in front of them. She says, I used to be a servant in Medina. Sayyida Zainab says, where were you a servant? She says, I was a servant in the house of Ali and Fatima. The moment she says Ali and Fatima, Sayyida Zainab says, do you know anyone from that house? She says, I know Hussein, I know Zainab, I know Abbas. Sayyida Zainab says, oh Hind, that is the head of Hussein, that is the head of Abbas. And oh Hind, you want to know about Zainab? I am Zainab, oh Hind. That what did Karbala do to Sayyida Zainab? That after Karbala, she wasn't able to recognize Zainab. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أيام منقلب ينقلبون ماتم حسین.
زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر پر. زندان کھل سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر. مظلوم ایسے گر پڑا مظلوم ایسے گر پڑا تربت پہ بہن کی جیسے حسین تھے گرے اکبر کی لاش پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر دیکھو نہیں رہی میرے ہاتھوں میں اب رسل جانے لگا ہے قافلہ اب لوٹ کر وطن لے کے تو بہن شام میں لے کے تو بہن شام میں قیدی ہی رہ گئی کھا کر تماچے سو گئی زنداں کی خاک پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر چھوٹی سی قبر پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر پر. کرتا ہوں یاد رو کے میں منظر وہ درد کا کانوں کے زخم پر جو تماچا تجھے لگا بابا کو تو سنا پہ بابا کو تو سنا پہ دیتی رہی صدا بابا سنا پہ روتے تھے تب تجھ کو دیکھ کر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر، اماں کی طرح تجھ کو نہ مل پائی تھی ردا، بابا کی طرح تجھ کو کفن بھی نہ مل سکا، پتھر بھی کھائے شام میں، پتھر بھی کھائے شام میں، تو نے میری طرح ناکے سے گر کے ہو گئی تیری بھی خم کمر، زندان کھل گیا سکینہ وطن چلو، کہہ کے گر پڑے چھوٹی سی قبر پر، زندان میں لے کے تجھ کو شام سے واپس نہ جا سکا، بابا کو کیا بتاؤں میں اب جا کے کربلا، کرتے میں دفن کر کے، کرتے میں دفن کر کے بنائی تیری لحد، عابد کو خون رلائے گا یہ درد عمر بھر، زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو، سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑے کربل میں چھن گئی تھی تیرے سر سے جو ردا، واپس میں لا چکا ہوں اسے دیکھ تو ذرا، سر پہ میں تیرے رکھتا، سر پہ میں تیرے رکھتا ردا اپنے ہاتھ سے، افسوس ہائے شام میں تو نہ رہی مگر، زندان کھل ہے سکینہ وطن چلو، پڑے اماں کے بین سن کے نکلتی ہے جان میری، کہتی ہے عمر بھر نہ وہ سائے میں جائے گی، کیسے اٹھاؤں اجڑی، کیسے اٹھاؤں اجڑی ہوئی ماں کو تو بتا، تیری لحد سے ماں کی بھی ہٹتی نہیں نظر، زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو، وہ رخصت حسین پہ زینب کا امتحان، ایسا ہی آج پھر سے ہے زندان کا سما، سجاد ہو رہا ہے، سجاد ہو رہا ہے جدا ایسے بہن سے، اٹھتا ہے رو کے قبر سے گرتا ہے قبر پر، زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو، پڑے مظلوم ایسے گر پڑے، مظلوم ایسے گر پڑے تربت پہ بہن کی، جیسے حسین تھے گرے اکبر کی لاش پر، زندان ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، 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 خون رویا ہے خون رویا ہے سکینہ کو سلا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، خون رویا ہے خون رویا ہے سکینہ کو سلا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، کیسے بابا نے اٹھایا تھا بدن اصغر کا، کیسے بابا نے اٹھایا تھا بدن اصغر کا، اٹھ نہ پایا ہے اٹھ نہ پایا ہے سکینہ کو اٹھا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، کیسے بابا نے اٹھایا تھا بدن اصغر کا، کیسے بابا نے اٹھایا تھا بدن اصغر کا، اٹھ نہ پایا ہے اٹھ نہ پایا ہے سکینہ کو اٹھا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، پھول سے گالوں پہ کہتے ہیں تماچوں کے نشان، پھول سے گالوں پہ کہتے ہیں تماچوں کے نشان، کاش بابا کو کاش بابا کو دکھاتی میں بھیٹا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو جس طرح سنتی تھی بابا سے یہ بی بی لوری، جس طرح سنتی تھی بابا سے یہ بی بی لوری، ایسے تلقین ہے، ایسے تلقین پڑی شان لا کے عابد، چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر عابد، ایک چھوٹی سی لحد دیکھو بنا کر اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان اللعین الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، ان اللہ و ملائکتہ یصلون علی النبی یا ایہا الذین آمنوا صلوا علیہ وسلموا تسلیما۔